So I'm going to be talking about the idea of the fear of the Lord that we find repeatedly throughout the Bible, but specifically in the book of Proverbs. So in this idea of fearing the Lord, we typically have an understanding that the fear of the Lord is this idea of having a high reverence or high respect and awe for the God of the Bible. Now, we see this idea sort of played out in Deuteronomy 10:12-13. And now, Israel, what does the Lord require of you but to fear the Lord your God, to walk in all his ways, to love him, to serve the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul, and to keep his commandments and statutes of the Lord, which I'm commanding you today for your good. And this idea is right? To have that reverence and that love and that awe and respect for God, that's a good thing to have. However, it seems to be a little bit more, if not much more, than just a respect and awe and love. And we see Psalm 119, verses 120. We see this idea saying, "My flesh trembles for fear of you, and I am afraid of your judgments." It is not merely a respect and high reverence and awe for God, but rather there's also an actual legitimate fear for who he is. He is someone that can judge us and will judge us. And because of that, I have a bit of a fear in what I do, because I know that he can judge me for my actions and will judge me for my actions. It's an awe, but it's also a legitimate trembling and fear in the way that we would think of fear for who God is. Now, I would say these are two good starting points of reverence and fear and trembling, because from there we get a better understanding of the Christian life and Christian walk should look like. Right? This is Proverbs 1:7 talks about the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, and fools despise wisdom and instruction. This is then reiterated in later passages like Proverbs 9:10. Right? The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. This idea that fear of the Lord is a starting place. Starting place for wisdom, starting place for knowledge. It is where the Christian walk begins, is when we understand that high reverence for God, as well as that fear and trembling for who he is and what he can do. At this point, the Christian can understand, okay, what does it mean to follow his commands? What does it mean to walk in his ways? It's also purposeful. We see this at the end of Ecclesiastes, right? Verse 13, after going through the entire book, vanity, vanity. It's all but trying to grab the wind, chasing after things in this life. He says, well, what's the point? What's the point of this all? Verse 13 of Ecclesiastes 12 says, "The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commands, for this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment, and with every secret thing, whether good or evil." For it is the duty of man, right, that we fear God and keep his commands. The idea of duty gives us a sense of purpose, and a thing that we ought to do as Christians is that fearing the Lord and keeping his commands is that. So what are some of the benefits? What's the practicality to this? Well, we get this idea a little bit more in Proverbs 15:16, right? Proverbs 15:16 says, "Better is a little fear with the Lord than great treasure and trouble with it." Right? It's valuable over things that are monetary and that are here, that come here on earth. Why? Because of who God is. Right? It's beneficial in the long run to have the fear of the Lord and to follow his commands, to follow who he is and to seek after him, because that's where that wisdom comes in, and that's where a full life comes in, as described throughout Proverbs. But in addition to that is Proverbs 16:6. "By steadfast love and faithfulness, iniquity is atoned for, and by fear of the Lord, one turns away from evil." Right? Fear of the Lord is in complete rejection and opposite towards evil on this earth. And through that continual pursuit or of loving the Lord and that faithfulness binded with the Lord, that's where iniquity is atoned for. Right? It's not by my works, but through that faith that I have, and continuing in that faith and continuing in that love, I am my iniquity, my sin is atoned for. Fear of the Lord is beneficial for the long run with that faithfulness, because we reject the evil of this world and it dismisses it, but also it's that sign of that I have faith. faith in the Lord, and faith that he has atoned for my iniquity and atoned for my sin. And from these points, I think there's a benefit to understanding the fear of the Lord. Yes, it is reverence, and yes, it is awe, but it's also trembling that because of my sin, there is a punishment I deserve. And that at the end of the day, that fear of the Lord is a good thing, is a beneficial thing, and it is the starting point for a meaningful, duty-filled life with responsibility and purpose. So that's what I say what the benefit is, and that's how I would say I would describe the fear of the Lord. Thank you. Have a good one.